Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Bardos, the school superintendent. I believe we'll get started. I just want to make sure if some of my panelists could give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Great. I'd like to
Excuse
first,
me,
yeah.
Amy, I'm so sorry. Mr. Servideo needs to be added as a panelist, Mr. Weber.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we'll begin by thanking Mike Weber at Foxboro Cable Access for hosting us once again this evening. We really could not do this as efficiently as we have been without his help. And so we know that we're live streaming on Foxboro Cable Access as well. So a great, big thank you and shout out to Mike and FCA. So in addition to myself, obviously this evening, we have our Foxboro High School administration, the principal, Ms. Myers-Pakla, our assistant principals, Ms. Sylvia and Mr. Servideo. Also joining us this evening is our assistant superintendent, Dr. Mello, your district nurse leader, who's also the nurse over at the Ahern Middle School, Ms. Jen Rosenberg. And we're really excited to be here with you this evening to talk about our return to full in-person learning on the Monday following April vacation. A lot has happened since our town hall meeting back on September the 8th. It's been a long time ago. We've lived through a lot. We've learned a lot over the course of the school year so far. Our goal has always been to return our students to full in-person learning, knowing how important the brick and mortar school is for our students, and to be able to bring them together. We're really excited for that to be on the horizon here. Simply stated, we know that the active engagement of our students and the motivation it comes with being in person and then being with their teachers and their peers in the classroom from both an academic standpoint, but also from a social standpoint. We also know that adapting to the challenges of COVID-19 has not been easy on anyone, and we continue to be really appreciative of the strong community support from our faculty, from our staff, from you, our parents, and from the Foxboro community. The saying that we say it takes a village could not be more true this year. So, with that being said, let me just please hear me and say thank you to all of you for your support through new schedules, through our technology ups and downs this year, and the extra support that you've provided through academics and with your own students and managing the hybrid learning schedule. We understand the enormity of these challenges, and we also know that getting our students, your children, back in school full-time for academics and social connections is really important to their young lives. This evening, our goal is to provide you with an overview of what will not change and what will change as our students transition back to full-time to a more structured learning environment. As you're aware, our K-5 students returned last week to full in-person learning on the, April 5th, and our 6 to 12 students will be returning on Monday following vacation. We also know that we're in a very different place than we were at the start of the school year. And again, as I said, we've learned a lot. For instance, we've learned that our mitigation strategies have worked and that schools are the safest place to be. We have pivoted from guidance that we've received from the Department of Education and the Department of Public Health all year. We also expect that we will continue to see guidance, and we'll have to adapt to that as necessary from the Department of Education. Currently in Foxborough, we continue for 8 weeks in a row to be in the yellow with a positivity rate that's about 4%. And most importantly, we know that the transmission that has not been taking place in schools, that schools have been shown to be the positive, to be the safest place by not having those positive cases transmitted in school. The cases that we have seen when there's been transmission, it's been outside of school and more so with in families or with other gatherings or even with sports as well. So this evening's presentation is not going to focus on students that are fully remote. We do have some students that are fully remote and they can continue to learn remotely. We have a number of students that have returned to the brick and mortar school, and we're really happy to see them back as well. So before I turn it over to Ms. Myers-Pakla, I'd just like to reiterate that the safety continues to be our first priority. We prioritize our students' social and emotional needs, and knowing that again, that they're experiencing COVID-19 differently. And that we also know that the transition period to bring both our cohorts A and B back together as a full classroom community is going to be just that. It is a transition. And teachers have already begun this process as well. So the last thing that I would just like to mention, and I will be following up with this in an email, is that the travel order for Massachusetts has changed to a travel advisory. And with April vacation coming up next week, there will be people that will be traveling. So although it is not required with the travel advisory for testing to take place 72 hours before you return, we strongly recommend that those procedures or protocols still stay in place, because we know that they do make a difference. If your student is sick or having symptoms, again, keep them home or to quarantine, because we want to be able to stay in school. And we know that all of these mitigation strategies that we've been employing all school year have truly made a difference. And that's thanks to our families for following that guidance, and then our faculty and staff, because we want to be able to have our students here. So I will stop talking and I will turn it over to Ms. Myers-Bacla.
As usual, I'm muted and I'm forgetting to put on my mic, so my mic is on. But I just want to say good evening to our families that have joined us and any students that may well have joined us as well. We're excited about what will be happening in a little bit over a week of bringing our cohorts back together again. We're excited that we've been able to, in many ways, attempt to maintain some semblance of normalcy within our school days, but our population has been split in half. And so we are very much looking forward to bringing them back together. Our sports and our music programs, we've been very fortunate, have been able to continue in modified forms throughout the year, and will continue all the way through the end of the school year as well. So again, not as many changes perhaps that are happening at this point as compared to the fall when we were coming back in, but still a few changes that we do want to make you aware of, and then again try to answer any questions that you may have that we haven't answered in tonight's PowerPoint. So joining me will be both of our assistant principals here at the high school, Ms. Beth Sylvia and Mr. Andy Servideo. And with that, Mr. Weber, if you wouldn't mind popping up our PowerPoint. So again, tonight we're talking about our full return to be happening on Monday, April 26th. We can flip to that next one. And as part of our agenda, we are talking about, and we are wanting to make sure that we highlight the health and safety of our students and faculty while here in the building. We'll talk about our arrival and our dismissal. A few tweaks are happening there. What our day is going to look like, it's essentially going to be the same as it has been. We are going to still continue to run our 7 periods a day with a rotating schedule. We'll talk about lunches. We'll talk about after school, some helpful hints or tips for students as they begin to transition back to the high school over the next week and a half. And then again, to make sure that we've answered all of your questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Beth Sylvia, and she's going to start out with our health and safety protocols.
Hi, good evening. I'm just going to touch base on some of the health and safety protocols so we can move to the next slide. So obviously we want to remember the 3 W's. You know, the face mask has to be on, it has to be over the nose. A little difference is we're maintaining 3 feet of distance with the exception of lunch, and Mr. Servideo is going to go through lunches because there's some significant changes there to protocols. And just a reminder that definitely wash your hands and sanitize often. The maintenance staff here in the district have done a great job. There's additional hand pumps that are actually attached to the wall all over the building, so there's plenty of opportunities to hit that pump and stay clean. Next slide. So we're going to continue, like I said, with the hand washing, hand sanitizing, and the mask wearing, and again, social distancing, 3 feet with the exception of lunch. The desks and chairs are going to be sanitized during every class period, just as they have been since the start of school. And at lunches, we will continue to spray the multiple locations that we have for lunches. The custodians have done a great job hitting all the bathrooms throughout the day, and they're going to continue to do that. And actually, there'll be more frequency with the number of students back in the building. And also every night, the custodians, like they still do, are going to go through this building with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that it is clean as possible for when the kids come back in. And I can tell you, they've done a great job, and we can't thank them enough. Next slide. So again, with the masks, I think that, you know, the biggest thing to remember is that the bandanas and the gaiters, they are not appropriate masks. They have to be masks. They can't have a vent. That is not different than the start of school. So again, a lot of this is repetition, the social distancing, you know, 6 feet while we're eating. There'll be plenty of opportunity for the kids, hopefully with the weather, that they'll be outside and they can take a little bit more space. Hand washing, sanitizing, you know, the desks, the kids have done a great job. I have to say, there's been not one teacher to complain to us, the administrators, about kids not complying with masks or sanitizing the desks. So I think we've got a pretty good handle on that, and I don't expect that to change at all. In fact, I think that it's going to be great having all the kids together and they can all wash their desks together at the same time. So next slide. Mask breaks. So obviously with us all in, there's going to be a need for some mask breaks, and the teachers are really good about giving kids that on a case-by-case basis if they ask. Obviously going to the restroom, they can do that too. But they can't take their mask off for any longer than 10 minutes. And then if a kid needs a little extra time, that's okay. We'll make sure that they get an additional break whenever needed. And like I said, with the weather changing, hopefully we'll be able to get outside and everybody can be outside, and we can maybe do some teaching and learning outside into the environment, which would be nice. So we need to make sure that they cannot have their mask off any place in this building except for when there's a mask break or when they're eating lunch and they're 6 feet apart. So we're going to do our best, and I don't suspect that we'll have any issues because we haven't had issues so far. So that should not change. So next slide. So again, with the classroom cleaning, you know, the kids do a great job, but again, the custodial staff is hitting every single classroom, every single surface with the Ghostbuster sanitizer machine. And again, the wipes are available. You know, I can assure you that this topic came up and Mr. Yukna said that we have enough wipes probably to last the next millennium. So I think we're good. So we have plenty of wipes, we have plenty of sanitizer. The custodians are going to clean throughout their shifts. And the touch surfaces are constantly on a rotation, so they always get hit. So, and again, if kids are using materials, they're going to have to hand sanitize and wipe down before and after they're using different materials. Next slide. And then this is where things get a little tricky, so I'm going to pass it over to my counterpart, Mr. Savidio.
Hey everyone. So morning arrival, there's a couple changes and some things are exactly the same as they have been. As far as where you might drop your son or daughter off, it's kind of at the flagpole, the gym entrance, the teacher parking lots, at those same areas you've been kind of doing it all year. The buses will still drop off between 7 and 7:20. Students continue to not use lockers, but the big change is going to be the increase in traffic. So we've been pretty fortunate this year where students driving themselves or parents dropping their child off have strolled in at 7:27, 7:28, and they make it to class on time. When we're at full capacity, it really just won't happen. So it's really important for students to be here by 7:20. In case there is a little bit of a hiccup along the way, they have enough time to either get out of the parent's car, get out of their own car, and walk across a parking lot to be into their class by 7:33. That's the biggest thing for the morning arrival. As far as the arrival locations, we are keeping 2 the same and 2 are changing. So all freshmen all year, they've been coming in, and at 7:25, they go to their class. So whenever they get here between 7 and 7:25, they go to the gym. We're going to jump to juniors. They've been in the media center and they will continue to be there. So the sophomores have been in the auditorium all year, but with band expanding to full capacity, they need the entire auditorium. So we're just going to shift our sophomores from the auditorium to the cafeteria, the outdoor patio, and room 122. Currently, we have our seniors in the cafeteria and outdoor patio, but there hasn't really been a huge need for seniors, especially as we're getting close to the end of the year and they're going to be out of here in a couple of weeks. We can use that space for both those grades. We'll still continue to offer breakfast for all students. It's no cost. So when they walk into the building, whether it's through the main entrance by the auditorium or the entrance by the gym, there's a grab and go breakfast little cart, little kiosk, and they're able to get their smoothie, get their bagel, whatever it is, and go on their way. So we urge students to continue to take advantage of that service. So here's where things are a little different. This is one of the big changes we've had with this return to all students here. So in the beginning of the year, we went from just the cafeteria to 3 locations, and now we're expanding to 6 locations. So we'll still continue with the cafeteria, and we're still going to continue with the downstairs media center, the first floor media center, and room 122. But we're also going to make sure that the outdoor patio has additional seating. So when we have days like today, students can sit outside. We're going to expand to the second floor media center and then C gym as well. So when we look at the different locations, just to try to make it kind of even and equitable for whoever's buying lunch or bringing their lunch, anyone in the cafeteria, it's really just for students who are buying their lunch from school. The outdoor patio, room 122, and the media center could be a combination. And then the upstairs media center and the gym is really bag lunch only. One of the biggest reasons for that is just the distance from the cafeteria. If a student were to wait in line, get their lunch, go all the way across the building or go up the stairs or whatever that may be, they're going to really cut into their lunch time. So we're trying to maximize how much time they have at lunch to be able to sit down and have their snack or their sandwich or whatever that is. Continue with that. Just there's going to be we've had a little kiosk outside the 122 media center area all year. And we're going to have one of those down at the location where the gym is. So students who are going to gym to eat, they have their bagged lunch, they can buy a water, they can buy a bag of chips without having to go all the way across the building. So hallways, really nothing's changed with the hallways. This is just more of the same. So it's just going to be more students, really what it comes down to. So it's almost like the rules of the road. Students stay to the right. There's blue tape down the center. They'll have their masks on. They're going to keep walking. There are teachers out at their door between passing time, and that will still continue to be the case. And I know there are some differences in the sense that we're at full capacity, but the students have done a fantastic job all year. They really have done, it's remarkable them following the rules. They're getting to class on time. They're wearing their masks. They've been in this routine. So because there's more of them, I don't really anticipate any major worries or fears or concerns. They're going to get from point A to point B without a problem. Slight change for the restroom. Most of it's kind of the same. Only one student out of a classroom at any given time. They still have been using the QR code. So when a student has to use the restroom and they get to whichever restroom they're using, they just use their phone, scan the QR code, and that lets us know that they're actually in the restroom in case we have to do contact tracing. They'll continue with that. Maximum of 3 students in a restroom at once. And if all the restroom stalls are in use, they're gonna have to wait outside on the floor. We haven't had a major need for that at this point, but that's where one area where we might see some changes where there could be a few more students out at a time and they'll have to use those markers. Also with lunch, we haven't really had the upstairs bathrooms open. There's been half capacity. So we're going to open those upstairs bathrooms to accommodate our full return. And we're also going to open the bathrooms by the gym during the lunch block to help those students as well. So as we move to the next slide, we're talking about after school activities, and Principal Ms. Myers-Packle will go through that for you.
Muted again. With our students coming back, we're very excited to also be able to expand the school day for our students. So we will be having late buses after school. Students will be able to stay with a teacher, again, making that arrangement with the teacher for extra help or to make up a test or a quiz. Sports are going to continue, of course, and extracurricular activities will be able to meet after school as well. Some of those clubs and activities are larger, and due to that capacity, they may well still be Zooming, or not Zooming, but they may still be doing this through Teams and online. And or if it's a little bit smaller, then they can certainly meet within the building as well. Students, though, must have a purpose to stay after school. It's not just to hang out with friends in the corridors or the classrooms. Teachers will be escorting students to doors once that event, whether it's after school help or whether it is an after school activity, Once that is done, the teachers will be walking them to a door and the students will be waiting outside if it for their ride or for the bus to come. If it is inclement weather, then we'll have the students waiting in the lobby area for their ride or for the bus to come. One of the things that will be changing is our pickup in the afternoon. So for parents, this is particularly important. There has been an uptick in people who are students who are being dropped off in the morning and students who are being picked up in the afternoon. So we know that that is going to cause the crowding, as Mr. Servideo was talking about, with the increase in traffic in the morning. We know when we were pre-COVID that we certainly had our traffic jams on South Street in front of the building in the morning. We know that that traffic jam is going to become that much more intense with more people driving and dropping off. So again, just to reiterate on the morning, we urge you to leave that 5 minutes earlier for students to be able to get here by that 7:20 mark and that they can make their way into the building at that time. After school, any cars that are picking up, what will now begin to happen is you will be directed, once you come up the Foxboro driveway, that you'll be going to be directed into the student teacher lot that's on the right-hand side. You're going to drive all the way through that lot. You're going to drive around the building and the cars will come over by the gym area. Obviously, if you're first in line, you're going to be between the side gym doors and the tennis courts, and all cars will just line up right behind. The best thing to do is that if your person that you're picking up has a cell phone, you can text them, tell them where you are located. I'm at the back of the building by the baseball lot, or I'm on the side of the building by the music wing or by the auditorium, or I'm sitting in that lot, or I'm over by the tennis courts, and your student can walk over to the car. Or if you just want to wait until they come around and they're waiting over by the gym doors, that's fine too. We also though want to please note that our buses again are used throughout the district. We're the first pickup. So it is very important that at 2:05, when the buses need to depart the high school, we'll be stopping that line or not starting the line to exit until the buses have departed. And the buses are out of here very, very quickly. So just a couple of changes. So once again, it'll be up the driveway, through the parking lot, and looping around the building for pickups. And the buses will be exiting first and given that first priority. We're hoping actually it'll make things a little bit smoother for our student drivers, our family pickups, and our buses as well. So again, it's a focus on classroom, community building, and student social emotional needs when they return here to the high school. This will be the first time that these students have been together since last March when they went out. For our ninth graders, it'll be the first time that they've been together as ninth graders here in our building. So we know that our first few days here at school, it's going to be like the first few days at school in September, because now this is new. The cohorts are coming together. And that's going to be like a new class. The students have gotten to know each other, whether they're in cohort A or cohort B, the dynamics of those classes that they have. So now these two are going to come together to become one. So there will be a little bit of time that'll be needed to really build that relationship within that class itself. And we know a strong classroom community is really the best thing that you can have for a positive learning environment. And we want students to feel safe. We want them to be risk takers in their education. And all of that is building that trust within the classroom. So that will be a focus that our teachers will be having and that our students will be having, and particularly with our ninth graders for this year. So what can perhaps you all do to help us at home as we begin to transition our students back full-time with everybody here? So one is to establish those routines. Please, we cannot emphasize this enough, to please have students charge their laptops each night. We do have charging stations within the rooms, but it's a help if that's done ahead of time. Then there's not a worry on a student's mind of, oh my goodness, I'm losing power, whatever it might be. It's also a good idea, obviously, to have that backpack ready each night, that homework is done. You know, and as we always say, and I know because I have teenagers myself, so I know what it's like, but the best thing that you can do is to have the cell phones out of the room so that, and even the devices, so that students' brains have some time to be able to really begin to relax before they try to go to bed and to go to sleep at night. So it's a help if that can be kept out of the room rather than in the room, but I do understand that struggle. It's also good to keep a consistent bedtime. We always say that, but we also know too the amount of time that our students are putting into their homework and into their schoolwork too. But it is important to get a good night's rest, or as best a good night's rest as students can do. Talk with your student about the transition. Teenagers, how are things going? Oh, it's fine. Maybe, tell me, how did today go? How did you manage it? How was it having everybody back in full time? And again, we do want to make sure that there is a balance between school and social and family priorities. All of that's important for a healthy individual, a healthy mind, and a healthy body. And if there are any issues, please don't hesitate to contact us. We encourage our students, especially at the high school level, to have those conversations with their teachers, to see a counselor, to see an administrator, to really be a self-advocate for themselves. But if you're seeing a struggle, please don't hesitate to contact any of us too, so that we can intervene and we can get things going in a positive direction. And parents, that's for you as well. Families, for you as well. Any questions, please do contact us. We're here. Our number one priority are our students, and we want to do the best for them. So whatever we can do, it's a community. As Dr. Berto said at the very beginning, it takes a village, and it does take a village. And we're all a part of that. So we are looking forward to this return from the 26th. And, we're full steam ahead for the next 8 weeks of school as they're here, or the next 4 weeks after that for our seniors. And I think that might bring us up to the Q&A. So we're not quite sure what might be in the chat or in the Q&A, Dr. Mello, that we haven't answered.
I think there's just a couple of clarifying questions. So one, I think, is probably for Mr. Servideo. Will the outdoor lunch seating be set up so students are either 6 feet apart or not facing each other while eating?
So in addition to the little patio tables that we have, which will be on the outside where it's one student per table, we do have the tent that we had back in the fall. And under the tent, we're going to have a whole bunch of desks, just like we have in the cafeteria, in rows 6 feet apart, all facing in one direction. So if a student wants to go out there, it's basically the same setup as the cafeteria. They just have better weather.
Great. Another question.
The other thing is also, if in the event drizzly and they want to sit outside, they can't.
Great. There's a question from a parent that says, my kids have been really concerned about how close together the desks appear to be for this new normal. Can you speak to that?
Well, I think Mr. Servideo and I definitely could speak to that. We're the ones who set up some test ones at the beginning to see what it looked like, and I totally understand that. I think we've talked about it, about how startling it was to see the desks so far apart at 6 feet, and then we're looking at them all put in at 3 feet, and they are definitely, it's an adjustment. It's an adjustment to the visual, to the eye, but they are definitely 3 feet apart, and we definitely, it looks different. It looks different, and it's going to look different, and it's going to look strange, especially when you've had the distance that you had. But but that's part of what we're here for. And if there are any kids that feel a little uncomfortable, have them come down and speak to us. We're happy to speak to them. But I can assure you that they will be all at 3 feet. They are now, and they will be rechecked by all three of us before they come in on Monday as well, to make sure they're all at 3 feet. But yeah, the visual is startling at first. It is. It takes a little getting used to.
And I think in some cases it's even more than 3 feet. Isn't that right, Miss Sylvia?
Whenever possible, we definitely are trying, if we can get more room, we do.
Great.
So
there's a related
the
question.
minimum.
What you just said about if someone doesn't feel comfortable or they want to reach out, there's a question here about what support services are in place for students. So I don't know who wants to take that one.
Well, we have our entire guidance staff. I mean, the administrators are always here. Our entire guidance staff is here. We also have 2 social workers that are on staff as well. There's the school nurse, there's a teacher in a classroom. So really, whoever a student may feel comfortable going to, and if that person is not one that can help directly, we will get them that help that they need, and get them the person that can best help them sort through all of this.
Okay, there are several questions with a common theme regarding close contacts. So what will the process be if someone is identified as a close contact? Will parents be expected to come and pick them up in the middle of the day? Something like that. And if a child was within 6 feet of a positive case, will they need to stay home? And then related to that, that's probably a good question for Nurse Rosenberg. And then related to that is a question about if they're quarantining from home, how do they maintain the currency with their schoolwork? So we'll let Ms. Rosenberg go first, and then we'll pick up the second part of that.
I can certainly address the close contact definition. As this situation, this pandemic has been such a fluid situation in the past year, I think one thing that has remained constant is that definition of close contact, which is within 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes. And that's what we've been following from the start. With the desks at a 3 to 6 foot distance, there will be, and we anticipate an increase in close contact if there happens to be a positive case in the classroom. We know that, but we also know from our data that we've collected from the start of the school that the close contacts that we've had to deem from the start of the school year have not turned up positive. So although we have to follow the rule and we will have to probably deem more people close contacts, we don't anticipate an increase in the number of positive cases. And I have to just say a thank you to all the parents out there that are doing their daily diligence with monitoring their kids at home, making sure they stay home when they're sick. That moving forward is going to be our biggest mitigation strategy that we can do to keep everyone safe and healthy. So just thank you. Continue to do that. Continue to reach out to Angela Murphy and Katie Timminger, awesome nurses at the high school. They have been working so hard this year, but they're there for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, give them a call, give them an email, and you can always reach out to me also. But we're in the home stretch. We've made it here. We're 3/4 of the way through this year, and I'm so proud of everyone, the hard work from the custodians to the teachers to the parents to our administration. It's been a complete team game. So you at home, it definitely certainly I'll echo the sentiments. It takes a village, and I think we're the team in Foxborough has done a really great job.
Nurse Rosenberg, before we go to the academic part of that question, there's one more question that you might be able to answer. If a child is vaccinated, will they have to quarantine if deemed a close contact?
Nope, as long as a child is fully vaccinated, as long as they remain asymptomatic, they do not have to be considered a close contact or quarantine or be tested unless they develop symptoms. So that's a great question.
Great, thank you. So I don't know who wants to take the academic part of that question if students are out with quarantine.
I can jump in, but I would just like to add a little bit to what Nurse Rosenberg said too. We have calls with the Commissioner of Education, Jeff Riley, and we had one of those today. And one of the things that he did speak about in that call is their work with the Medical Advisory Board, and will CDC change the current guidance on close contacts. So for instance, all of the research has shown, and it's come out of Massachusetts too, that there's not been the transmission in schools. And just as we've said, we've not seen that as well. So could there be in the next week or two that the CDC changes that as far as close contacts and it's not just less than 6 feet? That's a possibility too. And we know that that would be really a game changer when it comes to quarantining, because we know that that mitigation strategy of wearing a mask is so critical. And that's what's made the difference. And as Nurse Rosenberg said, when we have had the positive cases and we've had close contacts, those close contacts have then not been positive. The nurses have done an outstanding job of keeping all of that data and following up. So not only do we have the research from Massachusetts and coming out of DPH, but we also have the data that we've been collecting all year here in Foxborough. So we'll see what happens in the next week or two with any changes there with close contact in the school setting. As far as the academic piece, the quarantining piece when students are home, we know how difficult that is. I have 2 high schoolers myself and have experienced quarantining with both of them. And to be able to maintain their academics, that part is a challenge. As far as we've not been live streaming, as you know, this school year, and we're not going to be live streaming, but at the same time, we also know that the high school is different in that students with a competency determination and graduation, and to be able to connect with their teachers and the coursework that's taking place. So we can't replicate the classroom setting, but at the same time, where students, as an example, have been going through Teams for the period 2 class. If someone is out quarantining a high school student and they've been deemed a close contact by the school, it's not because they are just out because they don't feel well. This is all COVID related. If they are out for that purpose and they're quarantining for that reason, to go in through Teams to be able to, it might be listening in for a part of the lesson. It could look different from class to class because of the different nature of classes. But at the same time, to not have them to have access to their teacher. We know that with the competency determination at the high school level and with AP testing and everything else coming up, that it needs to look differently at the high school. So it will be taken by case basis, just as we've been doing in the past, but at the same time, we do recognize that there's a difference. I don't know if any of the administrators have anything else to add to that.
No, well said. Thank you, Dr. Berdos. Also, too, we would say that teachers continue to post in Teams as well. So again, there's always that access to whatever work is happening there. But no, thank you. You've summed it up nicely.
Dr. Berdos, there's 2 questions about MCAS that you may want to address. So is MCAS still postponed for juniors entering into their senior year? And if a student has to quarantine and misses MCAS, are they expected to make them up before the end of the school year?
So I can speak to that, or any of the high school administrators can. At this, we know that the commissioner is going to be going before the board and advocating and having them to vote that it will not be required for juniors unless they want to test for purposes of scholarship, meaning the Coplick or the John and Abigail Adams scholarship. And the high school sent out already a questionnaire to find out if there's any juniors that want to take the MCAS for that purpose. And I know that they had links on there that explained it more in detail. But if that vote goes through, then juniors would not have to take the MCAS going forward. Our current sophomores still do need to take the MCAS. I'll throw it over to the administration there if there's other information to add.
No, that is the information that we're going by right now, is based on what the state has currently put out. So we did send out that email with the link as to whether or not a student who's an 11th grader wanted to take the spring test for the scholarship purposes. They'll also be offered again in the fall if somebody chose not to this spring. But otherwise, yes, everything else is going forward.
There's a couple of questions here about the late bus. So will we be returning to a regular late bus schedule and for after school activities? Will students have assigned seats on the late bus? And are we running a late bus for the METCO students in the METCO program?
So we have the late bus for after school activities. The bus drivers will be probably assigning those seats. That'll come from the bus drivers. We don't assign in the building itself. And yes, there is already late transportation for our METCO students.
A question about summer school. Will we be offering summer school?
We will be. We're currently right now making that determination, and guidance counselors will be in contact with families where students would need to go to summer school. Our summer school offerings right now would be in English and in the areas of English and in math, but more information will be coming forward with that.
I think Ms. Sylvia is going to answer this question about underclassmen and first period classes coming to school after first period.
Yes, that hasn't changed. If students have a study at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, 9 through 12.
Great. Students, they're going to have their laptops. I think this question means will they be taking it with them? Will they take the laptop, or as usual, it will be with the students? I think that means, are they taking it from class to class, maybe?
Yeah, the students can bring their laptops from home and they're going to bring it back at night. I know some of the elementaries, they're leaving them in the classrooms, but here we kind of expect students to bring their laptops with them every day, whether we're in the hybrid model or we're in the full in-person. Teachers still will be using the devices pretty frequently, so we expect students to have their laptops here during the day, home at night to charge, and then bring them back the next day.
Great. Let's see. What happens if a student is, I'm not sure that we know this yet, but what happens if a student is identified as a close contact before they're scheduled to take an AP exam?
With the AP exams, there's 2 to 3 different renditions, I guess you could say, of them, so that they do have other dates for conflicts, for illness, for things along that end of it. And Ms. Healy Botello is our AP guidance counselor. So if there's any direct questions that come along, she would be the one that we would be turning to on that. But we have had students that have been ill in the past or have had to miss it for whatever reason it might be. And we've been able to make that arrangement on the other dates that were available for students to take those exams.
Okay, I know that parents of seniors have unique questions that are relative to having seniors. So there's a couple questions about senior events, if there's any updates and tickets for graduation and that sort of thing. Again, I'm not sure that we have answers yet, but those are the questions.
I can appreciate that. I have a senior myself, so I totally understand families where you're coming from on that. We are working through those logistics now. And as we speak, we wind up getting new updates from the state. So we're expecting a new one very soon. And we would be getting information out. Please know that graduation will still be scheduled for Sunday or Saturday, rain date. And that time is 11 o'clock, as the superintendent has shared at school committee meetings. So we're still working on the logistics of other pieces of that. We are going to have a senior sunset gala night, which will be on Friday, June, help me out folks, June 4th, for our seniors only here. And we've been meeting with the class officers and we've been meeting with the class advisors on a regular basis to try to really get their ideas on things that they would like to have happen and what it is that we can do, what we are allowed to do and the parameters that we need to maintain for these events to take place. So more to follow and more to come. Yes, there will be a scholarship night, whether in person or virtual. Yes, there will be a class night, whether in person or virtual or a combination. They will be happening. Again, working out the logistics of all of that at this time.
Question about bus routes. Are there any changes to the bus routes with the full return? And I know that bus routes are posted on our website, but I know at the elementary it came up, will letters be going out? And there will not be any letters, I know that, but changes to the bus routes. Anybody want to address that one?
To go on the website, they've been posted there. So it's really important to look to see, to get an idea of where the timing will be as far as your child to be picked up. But they're all posted on the website.
Nurse Rosenberg, if a student is identified as a close contact but becomes fully vaccinated during the quarantine period, do they still need to wait out the full quarantine period?
Yes, because when they were exposed, they were not fully vaccinated, so they have to. And that should, now with the shortened quarantine period, it really shouldn't be too much of an issue with that.
Great. Will quarantine and learning be handled on a case-by-case basis, coordinated by someone at the school, or up to the student to coordinate with each individual teacher?
Well, as always, if a student is a close contact and they don't have symptoms, we do, in any case, do ask that the students do reach out to their teachers. They always have guidance to help with that if there is some facilitation that might be needed. But usually at this age, at the high school, the students are doing that. Again, if a student is incapacitated, by all means, we want them really to regain their health, and then we'll worry about getting them caught up on their academics. But yes, we always have our guidance personnel here to help out.
I know Dr. Bertos already addressed this, but we do have 2 questions about why we aren't live streaming. And I know we haven't been live streaming all year. And I don't know if you just want to touch upon it again, Dr. Bertos, because there are 2 additional questions here.
Sure. So on live streaming, to have that to true live streaming, the technology and the cameras and to be able to move in a room is very different than what some people, the definition of live streaming, I think, depending on the individual, can change. So when you think about our period 2, where the teacher is on Teams and the students are at home in our current hybrid model and are logging in, the teacher still has the students in front of them in the classroom. So to have true live streaming where you have a camera that's set up in a room and it's moving and it's focusing in on students and getting the sound, to have one-to-one for our laptops is really a prerequisite for that. And so to be able, we were able to move one-to-one very quickly thanks to the CARES Act funding. But to have true live streaming in a classroom, that's additional technology that we don't have. And we want our teachers to be able to focus on the students that are in the classroom. So if they were in sitting at a computer screen versus other students that were in a classroom, they're not going to be able to give all of their attention that's there. But what we have seen is with the period 2 and talking with teachers, that's worked. We also know that in a quarantine situation, it's going to be different from class to class. It might make sense in, say, a math class to be able to log in through Teams to see the lesson to begin the class period and to be able to watch and to listen in on that. And it could be the next day that doesn't make sense. So we want to be able to make sure our students are supported and teachers will continue to work with them. We've also had plenty of cases in the past. We haven't seen flu this year, I think probably because of all of the masks, but we've had students many times that have been out for a week at a time, and teachers work really closely with our students to make sure that they have what they need and to be able to stay on top of their academics. And just as Mrs. Myers-Pacla has said and others, our guidance counselors in addition to teachers are there. So if you're in a situation and you feel that you need more support there, please reach out to the teacher. But I think also too, as Mrs. Myers-Pacla said, it's different at the high school level where students, you know, I have 2 high schoolers I set myself, and yes, they're very different, but they are very much more independent in reaching out to the teachers themselves as students. And that's really an important skill that we want them to be able to do as well.
Thank you so much. I think there's 2 additional questions here, and then it looks like we will be out of questions. Will students have assigned seating in their classrooms so they may be sitting around the same students during each class, generally to potentially reduce the number of close contacts?
Absolutely. Teachers are actually working on many of those seating charts right now so that when students are coming in on that Monday, they'll be assigned a seat, just like they are assigned a seat now.
Great. And with remote and hybrid learning, homework has been limited. Will there be more traditional homework being put back in place?
That's really up to each individual teacher. You know, again, to go full in right now doesn't mean that the year is as the year used to be. There's been a lot of changes. There's a lot of adapting and adopting that all of us have had to do, including our students. So again, this is an ease and a transition in. But yes, with all students in, there could be that shift a bit in homework, the style of homework or the way that students would be doing home lessons.
Great. Will any adjustments, I think this is really hard to answer right now, but will any adjustments be made if the school is finding large numbers of students that are in quarantine, like over 100 each week? So I think that's hard to answer right now. I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in on that.
No, you know, I think that's a really good question. You know, is there a magic number of where we would say, as you've seen some districts that have gone fully remote? And that's one of the things that we've been so proud of, to be quite honest, is that we've not gone out fully remote because of cases that are taking place. So there's no magic number. We also know that if you could have a good number of students, if you're looking at 700 plus students in a building, and we also know there's the potential for more close contacts based on being within the 3 to 6 foot range right now. But at the same time, we also know that it's more important for students to be in school. And if we can have the majority of our students in school, then that's where we want to be. We do not want to go out fully remote. We want to be able to be in the school building. We only have a quarter of the school year left. So every little bit that we can get is going to be so important. And we know our students are really excited, I think nervous too. They've shared that as far as the transition. And I've also said some of the things that questions have been is, we know it's not turning a switch. There's a transition period and bringing our cohort A and B together as a school community. It's going to be an adjustment for our students, for our faculty and staff, and for our parents. We know that. So we really appreciate, you know, having patience and understanding that it's going to be transition. And Students are going to experience different things. But as far as a magic number of going remote, there's not. We're always watching our numbers just as we have all year, looking at our community prevalence as well. And our numbers have been really low. Like right now, currently in the entire district, we have 9 cases. So our numbers have been really low. And we think that, it's the mitigation strategies that have been in place. And we will continue to keep those and be diligent, and safety, as we've said, is our #1 priority. So with that, thank you so much for so many of you that have joined us this evening. We've also recorded this session. And so thanks to Foxboro Cable Access, we'll be able to post the recording of this up on the high school website. So it can be accessed if you want to go back and review it, or if anyone else wasn't able to participate, they can view it then. Have a wonderful, safe April vacation. And we look forward to welcoming your students back on Monday, the 26th.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a nice night.